But if you do believe the issues in terms of tech companies moving over to robots, and you believe that Elon Musk's warnings of robots taking over the world are true, then we've got the perfect segment for you. Samsung recently announced its newest venture into robotics, combining healthcare and environmental needs into Samsung Bot Care, a robot that helps manage daily healthcare routines, and it comes after video of a robot performing surgery on a grape went viral last year. So here to break down the opportunities and threats robotics presents is Bill Studebaker, Robo Global President and CIO. Bill, thanks for being here. You guys craft ETFs and benchmark indices to help people invest in robotics. I mean, what are some of the companies you're looking at and that are part of your ETFs?
Well, we have a pretty broad universe of companies that we look at, and the index accuracy is a representation of that. We're trying to identify the companies that have the highest revenue exposure that corresponds directly to robotics and AI, and have a technology and a moat around that business that protects it. As we have it now, we have 12 subsectors that we've identified to capture it. Technologies and applications, so pretty diverse logistics automation companies, healthcare and others, and it's exciting right now in terms of what's going on.
I was looking at the ETF, and we have it here on the screen. I mean, up 10% year to date. What are some of the biggest companies that you're looking at in terms of, we saw the Da Vinci machine, the one that was performing on the grape. What kind of companies are you targeting here?
Well, again, we're just trying to capture the companies that have the highest revenue threshold. So we think it's important that to pick the obvious winners and losers is really difficult. If you think back to the internet, when that first launched, I mean, that was sort of a concept. Fast forward now, the internet was really amazing, it was disruptive in terms of change how we socialize, how we consume media, brought about search and e-commerce. Amazing, disruptive, that's it. Robotics and AI are in the process of disrupting every segment of the economy, touching every sector. And it's not about robots taking over the world. It's about robots and systems working alongside of people to improve productivity and improve growth. So I think that's the disconnect that some investors have had that they're starting to realize now.
I was going to ask that. I was going to say, do you believe Elon Musk that robots are going to take over the world? Or since you say no, what do you think that we can do to work alongside this growth so that way we don't lose as human beings?
Yeah, well, I think if robots are stealing our jobs, they're doing a bad job of it, right? You just have to look at the productivity levels in the U.S. And globally. And so what I think is interesting about robotics and AI, it's not about this general AI taking over the world. What we're doing is we're automating tasks. Okay, and you look at the spectrum of where we're going. We have a long way to go from point A to point B. We're really going from point A to point Z, and there's going to be a pendulum of tasks that become automated. And I think it's interesting that everyone's afraid that robots are going to take over the world and their jobs. 25% of the jobs that exist now did not exist 25 years ago.
That's a good point.
So to anticipate what you think is going to be, come or loss, I think it's hard for investors. But what's so exciting right now for investors, they should be focused on, is that we are in an unprecedented period of time in terms of innovation. The types of growth and wealth creation that we have possible is unprecedented. And I would encourage people not to spend so much time nitpicking every quarter and looking at the scheme of things. Where are we going in the next 2, 3, 4, 5 years?
Bill, talk to us about investment in this space, in this sector in the home, because we're seeing robots in the workplace and grocery stores, but this one is really featuring household tasks, right? In places like Asia, where there's a graying population and there's the birth rate is so low, they might lean on this technology more.
Right. Well, I think you're right. I mean, I think generally speaking, it's sort of, we have a lot of concepts in the U.S. You think about how much is your home actually automated now? A couple percent. We all want a robot that's going to be able to cook for us and clean for us and make our bed and do things like that.
I don't know if we all want that. Some people are scared of that.
I think we're a few years away from that happening. And Amazon has plans. We're working on household robotics. I think this is going to become a big category. But what iRobot said with the Roomba, they actually started this company almost, I believe it was close to 2 decades ago. So right now we're just getting to a point where that technology, is not only works, but it's cost effective. The problem with robotics years ago was that there wasn't an ROI to support it. Okay? And often a lot of technologies would start to be built, but what would happen? You get a grant, you'd start building it, and you'd run out of money, and then the technology would collapse. Now with shared computing and cloud computing and knowledge, that's all given to everyone. So you're starting from this point always. So the exciting thing is we're just starting, and from every segment of the economy, we're in the early days.
So you mentioned different segments of the economy. We've covered a lot. We've covered, social work there and healthcare. We've talked about a lot of things. But in terms of the sectors where you're seeing the most immediate threat to labor and jobs, I mean, because we've seen some robots flipping burgers at restaurants.
Yes.
We've seen all kinds of things. I mean, is there one spot where you look and say, okay, maybe robots are close in that area?
Well, I think where robots are good at disrupting is in repeatable, dull, dangerous jobs, right? So there's a lot of areas you can kind of identify, but it's also what does it do? I mean, in many cases, these are necessities that you need them for, and everyone's worried about robots coming over and stealing, every transportation job, and we're a long ways from this happening. I think this will happen in increments. It's going to happen. But I think probably one of the most exciting areas for people to begin to think about, not autonomous vehicles, but medicine.
Yeah.
Healthcare as we know it is going to change in ways that I think very few people appreciate or are excited about. We're going to a world of not responding to healthcare after it happens, but we're talking about prevention, prediction, individualizing healthcare. I mean, there is a genomics revolution going on because sequencing costs, essentially, since it started, have fallen roughly 50% per year. So the first sequence of the human genome cost $90 million, and it took roughly 4 to 5 weeks to get that done.
Yeah.
Now it's a couple $1,000s, and you can get it in a few days. Soon to be a couple $100s. So begin to use that to predict and measure our health is going to be amazing.
So more reasons to be optimistic than perhaps pessimistic.
Yeah.
All right, Bill Studebaker, thanks so much, Robo Global CIO. Appreciate it for coming on.